Hello friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And I'm here for another This and That video. And for those who are new, my This and That videos are basically a somewhat weekly vlog of what I've got going on around here. Some of the experiments I'm doing, what's happening in the garden, and to also link you back to other videos that I have, some older ones that could be 2 years old or a year old, just so you can see what's out there if you're wanting to learn how to do any of the stuff that I've got here. So, okay, what I want to talk a little bit about is my garden harvest at this time. So right now, the weather's getting to that point where it's starting to get too cold and the tomatoes aren't getting ripe. So I'm starting to harvest my bigger green tomatoes to be cutting up and using in whatever. I'm not going to be making any more green relish this year because we hardly used any of what I canned up last year because we just don't go through a lot of relish. It's really good. It tastes wonderful, but I still have lots of relish, plus I'm almost out of canning jars and I still have a lot of apples to work through. So mostly with the green tomatoes, I think I'm going to freeze some of them, and some of them I'm going to be using up right away. Green tomatoes and tomatillos both are really good chopped up and added to stir fries. I really like them like that, and I did talk about this in another video, but that's just one of my favorite ways to use them is adding them to things like that, or even other mixed vegetables, like throw in some zucchini, some peppers, onions, garlic, and just sort of stir fry them and just have that as a side dish. But also putting them in fried rice and those kind of dishes is really good. And I plan on doing some of that this week. And that brings me to my next point, and that is I've got some leftover steak in the fridge right now that we cooked up last night. So whenever I pull steak out of the freezer, I usually pull out enough that Mr. Rain and I can have some barbecue steak for dinner that night, and then have plenty left over for me to make a couple more dinners out of. So one of the things, what I'm going to be doing tonight is I'm going to be using these Marconi peppers, and no, they're not red. Some of them are starting to turn red, but the plants are about finished up, and so I decided to go ahead and pick them while they're green and not wait. Our weather's just not quite warm enough here for them to turn red. However, they're still amazingly delicious. Now, it was Jen that sent me the seeds for the Marconi peppers, and I'm really grateful for that. And I've already used some of them up, and tonight I'm going to be doing basically a stir fry. There's a couple of different options. I haven't decided what I'm going to do yet. I'm either going to make it like a fajita mix served over rice with the sweet peppers and then the leftover steak, or I'm going to make a fried rice using the peppers and the steak in the rice. I haven't decided yet. I just haven't decided what exactly I'm in the mood for. Maybe I'll do both. Maybe tonight I'll do one and tomorrow night I'll do another. But I've also got a couple of cayenne peppers I'll throw in here, and then this darker pepper here. I already forgot the name of it. I'd never heard of it before. I actually bought it as a start at our local store and thought I'd give it a try. And the first ones I picked were not at all hot, but then the ones that came in after that turned out to be pretty spicy, and so they're really good. So I'll be throwing those in there too. So just cut up that steak and put in whatever vegetables you want. I've got fresh garlic from the garden right here. This one here, this looks like an onion. This is actually one clove of garlic that I broke in half on accident, and that is the elephant garlic. But I also have some other garlic, just your standard regular garlic in here, which is stronger than your elephant garlic. I like them both a lot, so I'll be using them both in the whichever dish it is that I make tonight. So anyway, that should give you a couple ideas of things that you can do if you cooked up a whole bunch of steak. Maybe you were expecting more people and they didn't show up, or whatever happens. That's just a couple of ideas you can do with your leftover steak. I mean, it's already got that barbecued flavor in there. It's so good. You just chop it up, and I've actually thrown it into soup, and boy, the flavor to me was so much better than just, regular stew meat. I loved it. It was so good because it just has that little bit of, added flavor from being barbecued, and it's really wonderful. So there's a couple ideas, and I also have a playlist on making the most of leftovers. I'm constantly adding to it throughout the year. Usually winter, fall, winter, and early spring is when I'm doing most of those kind of recipes. But I'll go ahead and link to the playlist right up here so you can check it out. It's just ways you can use leftover chicken, leftover beef, leftover venison, leftover fish, anything like that, and make a whole new meal out of it. Now right here is my first jar. I'm still bringing the beans in. These are the runner beans. You know, I pick the young ones while they're green, and we use those as a green bean, you know, when they're still kind of on the smaller side, and they're really good as a green bean. And then I'll let the rest of them finish out and then become a dry bean that I can use for chilies and things like that. And so that's what's here. That's my first jar. And then right here is the bag. I did a video recently of how I'm storing my seeds, and this is how I decided to start storing the beans that I plan on planting for next year. So that's what's in here, and I got quite a bit. I plan on adding more to this bag, but anyway, I made a bunch of these little bags. I'll go ahead and link to that seed video and how I save it right up here, so you can check that out. And I also have a video coming soon about the beans themselves, about how I'm going to be drying them and all that, and how I seal them in the jar and so on. Over here, I've got a couple of things out because I really need to get a batch of the cedar patchouli borage soap made today. It's one of my more popular ones. So this is dried borage leaves from my garden. Borage is another one of those herbs that's got a lot of good benefits for your skin, and so I like to add that to some of my soaps, just like I'll add calendula and different things like that. And then the cedar patchouli is nice because if you're looking for something that you think has a more manly smell, the cedar patchouli is a good choice to go with. So that's what I got to be doing today, because I only got a few bars left on there, and I know someone who really wants to buy like a whole batch of it, so I got to get that done. Here I've got some wheat berries soaking. Now, I have a couple of videos on soaking wheat berries. I'll link to one of them right up here. I do, as far as drying them go, I do it differently in the spring and the summer than I do in the winter time. This is the time of year I start spreading it on a stoneware cookie sheet and using the dehydrator that Mr. Rain built for me, and I set it on top of the wood stove, and then the cookie sheet sets on the very top, and I just stir it around and let the wheat berries dry. Now the reason I wanted to share this is that I started changing a little bit the mixture that I use, because I finally dug into one of my bags of spelt berries because I kind of forgot I had them, and I'm finding I really like a blend of about 2 parts of the hard white wheat berries, 1 part soft white wheat berries, and 1 part spelt berries. I really am liking the overall all-purpose flour that it's giving me. That is so good in my breads and biscuits, tortillas and pancakes and things like that. So I'll be rinsing this out soon and then getting it on the wood stove so that they can start drying, and then I can grind them up into flour. Okay, and then over here, right here, you can see I've got some peppermint oil, I've got some cacao butter, and some of you have probably already guessed what I'm going to be making today. I'm going to be making peppermint patty bark. Now in this particular recipe, I'll be just putting it all together, mixing everything together, and then just putting it in my buttered pie pan, and then once it's set, I just cut it up with a spatula. That is the absolute easiest way to do it. But when I'm wanting to make the peppermint patties, just like when I make the peanut butter cups, and I want it to look a little nicer, I'll use those little silicone cups, and I'll separate it, so I'll have a layer like a peanut butter layer or the peppermint layer, and then the chocolate layer on top. And so if you want to see the video on how I do that, I'll go ahead and link to the peppermint patty video right up here, and I think within that you might be able to find the peanut butter cup one. I'm not sure, but you can also do a search on my channel for that. Those are both couple of my 2 favorites. I do have other recipes like the raspberry cream and the orange cream. I have several different chocolate recipes that I also have some that are very, very simple, that take just 3 ingredients: the cacao butter, the cacao powder, and some kind of dried fruit. Raisins are really good because they're so naturally sweet. They just have so much natural sugars in them that you don't need to add any honey or organic sugar or anything like that. You just put a good layer of your raisins down, or you can even with that add some coconut to it, and then you have something that turns out to taste a lot like an almond joy. It's really good. But today I'm going for the peppermint patty bark. And then you can see over here I'm still harvesting zucchinis. I think they're never going to stop. The plants are starting to die and they don't look very pretty, yet they're still giving me these massive zucchinis. I keep thinking it's done, so I forget about them and go out there. Oh look, there's another zucchini. Still dehydrating some of it, still adding it to my dinner, so some of that will definitely go on tonight's dinner too. Yeah. I don't think it's ever going to stop. That I know it will. Oh, and then if you're wondering, back here is my apple blueberry wine that I have brewing. And so I don't make the wine to drink. I make the wine for making extracts and for using in cooking. I really love using homemade wine in cooking. So when I do my stir fries like I plan on doing tonight, my homemade wine is one of the things I'll put into the stir fry when I'm using that. And there's many other things. You can add your wine to your water when you're cooking pasta. It gives your pasta noodles a really good flavor. You can also add it to your sauces, especially like your Italian sauces. Just adds a super nice flavor. So that is why I brew my own homemade wine, is for those kind of things, because I don't drink. So it's all for other purposes. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed this video and that you learned something new, and don't forget to check out some of those videos. And thanks for watching. Take care, and God bless.